Fucking stupid. No, just kidding. It's fucking awesome. Get out of my way.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Alright. Oh, fucking. What the fuck? Oh my god. What's happening, guys? I'm sorry this review is a bit late. I spent a crazy amount of days working a shitty retail job that I'm about to quit, as well as spending some of those nights I come home doing daily challenges on XDefiant instead of playing this. But better late than never, right? So, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, this massive expansion 2 years in the making since the base game came out. Was it worth the wait? To keep it simple, absolutely. They really cooked with this DLC. Kinda like how the entire USA is cooking right now. Seriously, fuck this heat. Anyway, ever since Demon's Souls first released in 2009, From Software has been the forefathers of challenging yet rewarding action RPGs, and their level of creative game design and artistic ingenuity has been pretty unmatched for well over a decade. Their latest major Souls-like entry, Elden Ring, took the Souls formula and made it a big open-world experience, and at launch was widely praised for its scope, non-linear player freedom, insanely deep build and class variety, and a strong sense of natural exploration that put most other open-world chore fests in the gaming industry to shame. It has since been widely considered one of the best RPGs of all time. That's not to say it was perfect, as it did have a tendency to be a bit repetitive at times, lacking in variation with its optional mini-dungeons, had a total ass last boss, and occasional technical issues, which did seep its way a little bit into the DLC. It still earned a 9 out of 10 from me, and even won my Game of the Year in 2022 despite those few setbacks. Shadow of the Erdtree takes the foundation of what made the base game such an engrossing and immersive journey, and amps the experience even higher by addressing these issues and resolving them with improvements. Better dungeon variety with new traps, along with a new dungeon type called Forges that end with finding legendary smithing upgrades instead of just, another boss. I find that there are better designed major bosses that often require strategic thinking during certain attacks, even richer enemy variety as well. Though I must confess, it didn't go nearly as far as to make me feel like I should respec or change my build at times, like the main game did in later parts. That's okay, because my build for the next playthrough for this is going to be different anyway. Once again, I have to gush over how the game looks. While From Software may not possess the same level of graphical fidelity, detailed textures, or state-of-the-art mocap facial animations you'll find in something like God of War, Horizon, or Hellblade, it is the incredibly rich environments and landscapes that do an effortless job at making my jaw drop and my eyes water. The Shadow Realm somehow manages to be even more striking, intriguing, and colorful than the lands between. Okay, well, maybe not all the time. They still throw in those weird squid faces. The ones that have vaginas for eye sockets. Oh dear God, what is this now? Is this pee? Is this a pee fall? A pee waterfall? Oh, God. Ah, and I'm bathing in it. Oh, dear God, I can almost imagine the smell. I think I'm gonna throw up. This DLC's pre-order bonus should have been a doggy bag. All jokes aside, it is an incredibly rich and detailed world with tons of variety in its areas. There's a place blanketed by this huge dead dragon that you can walk over, and it's so big that you can clearly see it on the map. There's also this really creepy optional area where you explore this dead wooded canyon at the bottom of the Shadow Realm, consumed by madness, and you encounter these really terrifying new enemies that you need to hide from and sneak past through tall grass. Otherwise, they'll catch you and insta kill you pretty much right there. It goes from being fantasy to cosmic horror pretty fucking fast. As you may already know, Shadow of the Erdtree is a direct prequel to Elden Ring. It takes place just before the shattering of the ring as you pursue the rogue traitorous Miquella. It is so much darker, tense, and unholy feeling than before, as you're essentially experiencing the start of the downfall firsthand. I actually like the narrative more this time. It's a great prequel, and the various NPCs you encounter in this perilous journey each have their own quest lines that help tie together the whole story. Going more into my assessment on the exploration, I first want to congratulate Miyazaki and his team for once again knocking the design of the Legacy Dungeons out of the ballpark. There are 4 legacy dungeons in the whole DLC, and I loved each and every one probably even more than the ones in the main game for the most part. I found that they were crafted even better, had a lot of helpful shortcuts, and even contained a lot of secret platforming segments that led me to discovering otherwise inaccessible platforms. My praise for the exploration and sense of discovery doesn't end with the legacy dungeons. If anything, it only starts there, because the way the open world layout is designed now is perhaps even more mind-blowing than anything From Software has developed since Dark Souls 1. At first, I was a little bummed to find out that there were no major underground networks like there were in the base game, as those were some of my favorite areas to explore before. However, there is a big underground zone in the southernmost tip you can feast your eyes on. But this DLC more than makes up for the lack of underground regions with its insane level of verticality on the surface. This is something that was sort of missing in the main game's map that made it feel mostly pretty flat. There are so many layers to the map with way more interconnected hidden pathways that lead down to different zones, whether it be finding a path downstream through a ravine or unlocking a spirit spring puzzle to jump up a cliff and into a new castle, going through a cave only to come out the other side to discover a dangerous uphill mountain path filled with deadly dragons and falling boulders, or even draining a flooded portion of a castle, an homage to the New Londo ruins in the first Dark Souls game. There's even one minor area that is unlocked by performing a specific new gesture in front of a statue. You gotta love it when they do that. Raise your hand if you found this all out on your own. Because I sure as hell didn't. When you explore this expansion thoroughly, with its level of verticality in mind, you'll find that it is actually even more open to you than before. And when I say open, what I really mean is how much you can find before needing to fight a single boss. You can explore at least a good 80% of the whole thing, including the entirety of 3 out of 4 legacy dungeons, before needing to face off against a boss, giving you so much more in the way of leveling up, finding most of the upgrades, better gear, and feeling more prepared. To show you just how much ground you can cover without beating anything, here is a recording I took when I prioritized exploration over linear progression, because this is just how I like playing Elden Ring. At the time of this recording, I did not fight a single major boss that prevented me from either entering a new area or getting around somewhere. Crazy, right? Even more so when compared to the base game, where I think you can explore roughly half the game before fighting anyone. Regardless of how you approach this DLC, if you explore all the zones, beat all the smaller dungeons, loot every nook and cranny of the legacy dungeons, kill every boss, and do every questline, you are guaranteed to spend at least 40 hours in the Shadow Realm. And for a $40 expansion, that's not bad at all.
It's like $1 an hour.
Oh, and in case you're wondering, you are free to fast travel back to the main world map at any time to do whatever you need to do, like upgrade new weapons or ashes that you may find. Actually, I remember collecting a couple bell bearings in the DLC, and those can only be given to the Twin Maidens at the Round Table hold that are used to expand their inventory of things to buy. It's about time I finally address the difficulty, which is often both the biggest topic and point of criticism for these games. This might stir some emotions. I find that every time one of these games, or DLCs for these games for that matter, when they first come out, there's always a large pool of players, or maybe not large, maybe it's just a vocal minority, who complain about certain bosses being too hard, or enemies hitting unreasonably hard in certain areas. And on one hand, I get it. It is a hard DLC, just like all other From Software's DLCs being harder than the base game. And I admit, that last boss of this one, Consort Radahn, in his prime, is extremely hard, even with maxed out Erdtree and Spirit Ash blessings, and he could probably use a nerf or two, which has happened in the past. But I also think a good number of these players are the same ones who tend to gatekeep how for years they've been able to play through these games at level 1, or play without summoning where now they don't feel it to be possible anymore, or simply refuse to make these games easier for themselves. Of course it's going to be much harder without leveling or summoning for help. Isn't that the point? Elden Ring, at least in my perspective, is designed differently from Dark Souls, in the sense that it's more of an RPG revolving around stats, specific builds, and making use of appropriate status effects. Just like how Sekiro was different in the sense that it was more of an action game and required more muscle memory and timed parries. A lot of Souls vets don't seem to accept this though, and still view leveling up or summoning as a crutch, or a cheap means to get around, or head, when they're really just game mechanics that exist to be utilized for those who want them. This is why I prefer to avoid engaging with the Souls community and their get good toxic attitudes, or if you summoned, you didn't actually beat the game, bitter asshats, that are the same ones blaming a game's difficulty or claiming that there are balancing issues just because they're not using all the tools they are given to counter them. This is an RPG, and like every other RPG before it, if you don't level up or find new upgrades to keep up with increasingly challenging enemies or have teammates with you in boss battles, you will suffer from it. But they don't care. They care more about flexing than they do actually finding enjoyment in the games they pretend to love. That's the Souls community in a nutshell, at least from my experience. Anyway, yeah, rant over for that one. Shadow of the Erdtree is a challenging late-game DLC designed exclusively for high-level characters. It does feature new leveling mechanics, however. Scooter-free fragments, which help increase your attacks and durability, and revered spirit ashes that make your spirit ashes tougher. And these do a good enough job balancing out the DLC's harder difficulty a bit. And the more you explore to find them early on and as soon as possible, the easier of a time you'll have, on top of leveling up the normal way with runes that you get for simply defeating enemies as before. If you don't do all of that, and if you're impatient and trying to rush through an area, trying to beat it as fast as possible for whatever weird reason, especially on your first go, you will die a lot. It's just the nature of the game, as it always has been with these games since their inception 15 years ago. I actually love summoning NPCs for certain boss fights in this game, regardless of whether it can make the bosses a little too easy, because they do add to the overall scale of these battles, making them feel broader and more epic as a result. They can even add unique lines of dialogue, and may even help contribute progressing in certain characters' quest lines.
Curse you, Bale! I hereby vow you will rue this day. Behold, a true great warrior, and I, Egon, your fear made flesh. Solid of scale you might be, proud dragon, but I will riddle with holes your rotten hide with a hail of harpoons, with every last drop of my being. Accursed Mesmer, my clan's suffering, their pain, all that they felt. Do you understand now? Your ugliness.
Oh, okay, it's over. Calm down, man. Mesmer's dead now. He can't hurt you anymore. Jesus, have I forgotten to mention how much I really like some of these main bosses, as well as the music that accompanies them? I mean, sure, there are a couple that are complete dumpster fires, like the Erdtree avatar, and most of the open world field bosses are just single copies of the ones we already fought in the main game. But holy hell, a lot of these big story-driven bosses have incredible cinematic openings. Mesmer is my personal favorite boss in the whole expansion, and possibly in all of Elden Ring. Both his intro and mid-fight transformation scenes are just so mesmerizing. Get it? So, is there anything about this DLC specifically that I have a big complaint about? Well, not really, actually. I mean, I guess one complaint I have is having no new blacksmiths or general merchants around, but you can just fast travel back to the base game for that anyway. Oh, I do wish this had trophy and achievement support, but at the same time, I had a feeling it wouldn't since none of the Dark Souls trilogy had them. I know Bloodborne did with the old hunters, and that's probably just Sony forcing them to add in trophies. This may very well be the greatest expansion pack to any video game I've ever played. It takes all the things that worked, improves on most of what could be improved upon, and delivers on the promise of a fresh, new experience tenfold. My final score for Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is a monumentally rare 10 out of 10. It is a near flawless, fully realized version of the Elden Ring formula, combining its critically lauded open-ended freedom with the interconnected roots of Dark Souls to form a truly special experience. Not only is this among FromSoft's best works, but has probably just now cemented Elden Ring as my personal favorite open world game in history. This right here has set my new gold standard for how I will rate and compare future added post-launch content for any game that gets it for years to come. And unless another 10 out of 10 comes my way in the next 5 months, Elden Ring will very likely once again win my Game of the Year. Yeah, that's right. I count DLCs, okay? Especially massive ones like these that evolve past the greatness of their foundations. Remember when I gave Witcher 3 Blood and Wine Game of the Year back in 2016? It's because that shit was the bomb.
The gamer gods. I like big butts and I cannot lie.